स्वागत 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 आप सबका स्वागत है अपने YouTube चैनल आर्ट ऑफ प्रोग्रामिंग पे। हेलो एवरीवन, वेलकम टू माय YouTube क्लास ऑन आर्ट ऑफ प्रोग्रामिंग। In this video we are going to talk about the tokens in C programming language. In the last video we have seen what is a token. A token is a group of character. Now this token forms the similarity with the word in any natural language. Therefore, what is a token? A token is a group of characters. A group of characters forms the token. Group of characters forms the token. Now this token is a word, is like a word. It is the basic unit of a programming language. It is the basic unit of a programming language. Basic unit of programming language. Now there are different types of words, we know it in a natural language. A word may be noun, verb, adverb, conjunction and so on. Similarly, there are different types of tokens we have. Right, now let's see the different types of tokens. Types of tokens. Now there are different types of tokens. They are, let's start with the first token, that is constant. We will see what are different types of constants, what do we mean by constants and how constants are written and so on. The second type of token that we have is a keyword. We will see what is a keyword, how many keywords are there, how keywords are written and so on in the video pertaining to the keyword. The third type of constants that we have is the identifiers. These are the next type of keywords. We will discuss in detail in the identifiers video. What do we mean by identifier? How do we write an identifier and so on. And the last type of token that we have is the operators. And the last type of token that we have is the operators. Now let's summarize it. What is a token? A token is a group of characters. It is the basic unit of any programming language. Now this token is similar to a word in a natural language. There are different types of tokens: constants, keywords, identifiers and operators. Now let's discuss constants in this video. Let us discuss the constants. Now the name itself indicates constant. Constant is something whose value do not change during the course of execution of the program. Now constants are one which do not change its value, don't change its value during the execution of the program. It doesn't change its value during the execution of the program. Now at a higher level there are two different types of constants. Let me write here types of constants. At a higher level there are two types of constants. The first type of constant that we will be studying are the numeric constants. The first type of constants are the numeric constants. And the second type of constants are the character constants. They are the character constants. They are the character constants. Numeric constants, as the name itself indicates, they deal with numbers. And the character constants, as the name indicates, they deal with the characters. They might be alphanumeric in nature. It might be combination of alphabets and numbers both together. Now let's discuss numeric constants and character constants in detail. Let us discuss the numeric constants. As the name itself indicates, these constants have numeric values. Say for example, we can write 15, it is a numeric constant. because we cannot change the value of 15 to 17. You cannot change it, it's a constant. If you write -5, it's a constant, you cannot change its value. Similarly, we can write 1.48, it is a constant, it's a numeric constant. Now, as we can see here, again we can distinguish this numeric constant into two types. These do not have the decimal point, and the one which do not have the decimal point, they are called as integers. They are called as integers. And the one which have the decimal, they are called as the floating point values. They are called as the floating point values. The real numbers are called as floating point values. Therefore, these numeric constants, they are of two types. And the first type of numeric constant, I can write it as A, is integer numeric constant. Is integer numeric constant. Now, what is this integer numeric constant? The integer numeric constants are one which do not have the decimal point. Right? I can write it does not have decimal point. Does not have decimal point. Okay. Say for example, we can write plus 12. You can write minus 17. You can write plus 4. 5 without writing any plus or something. If you don't write it as assumed to be plus, we know that. These are integer numeric constants. Now again, in integer numeric constants, there are three types. Right? Types of integer numeric constant. Types of integer numeric constant. Types of integer numeric constants. Now, what are the different types of integer numeric constant? The first one over here is the decimal integer numeric constant. Now, what is decimal integer numeric constant? As the name indicates, it is to base 10. It is to what base? It is to base 10. Now, whenever we say base 10, that means whenever you divide the number by 10 and what the remainders we get, the same digits we can use it. We get the remainders from 0 to 9. Therefore, in decimal integer numeric constants, you can use the numbers from 0 to 9. You can use the numbers from 0 to 9. Example, we can write it as 45. It is a decimal constant because all the numbers are from 0 to 9. You can write 20. It is a decimal constant. We can write minus 8. It is a decimal constant, and so on. The second type of integer decimal numeric constant is octal. Now, as the name indicates, oct is nothing but 8. Therefore, it is of base 8 system. It is of base 8 system. Now, what are the possible remainders that we get whenever we divide the number by 8? It is from 0 to 7. Therefore, here you can use all the digits from 0 to 7. You can use all the digits from 0 to 7. Now, say for example, if I write 45, are all the digits in between 0 to 7? Yes. 4 is in between 0 to 7. 5 is in between 0 to 7. Now, if I write 45, what do I say? Shall I say decimal or shall I say octal? It is a confusion. Now, to avoid this, the octal numbers always starts with 0. If you write only 45, it becomes a decimal. If you write 045, it becomes an octal. Octal numbers proceed with 0 in C. Now, similarly, you can write minus 025. It is an octal number. But if you would have written only minus 25, it would have been a decimal number. But minus 025 is an octal number because it is starting with 0. Now the question comes, sir, if I write 0, is it decimal or is it octal? By definition, 0 is octal in C programming language. Therefore, the first type that we have studied is decimal, the second was octal, and we have the third one. And the third one that we will study is the hexadecimal. And the third one that we will study is the hexadecimal. The name itself says hexa means 6, decimal means 10. That means it is 16, 6 plus 10. Therefore, it is base 16 system. It is base 16 system. Now, what are the digits that we can use? Now, whenever you divide the number by 16, you get remainders from 0 to 15. But how do we use it? We can use the numbers from 0 to 9 and A to F. And A to F. Now, 0 to 9 you can use it. A means 10, B is 11, C is 12, D is 13, E is 14 and F is 15. Right? Therefore, it is from 0 to 15. Now, say for example, sir, how do we write the hexadecimal number? Some example. I can write 27. Now, if I write 27, this 2 is in between 0 to 9 and A to F. Similarly, 7 is between 0 to 9 and A to F. But if I write 27, sir, is it decimal? Because decimal is 0 to 9. And in 27 also we have 0 to 9. Is it decimal or is it hexadecimal? This is a confusion. Now, to avoid this confusion, hexadecimal numbers begins with 0x. They starts with 0x. If I write 0x27, it is an hexadecimal number. Similarly, you can write 0xAD21. This is an hexadecimal number. The hexadecimal numbers can be negative as well. 0xA2 is a hexadecimal number. Therefore, we have studied integer constants. What are integer numeric constants? They do not have the decimal point. Now, there are three types of integer numeric constants. First one is decimal, base 10 system. Second one is octal, base 8. Octal numbers precedes with 0. And the third one that we have is hexadecimal. It is base 16, 0 to 9 and A to F. This A to F you can write in uppercase or lowercase. And the last thing that we know is hexadecimal numbers begins with 0x. So that is what we have studied with integer numeric constants. And the second type that we have is a floating point constant that we will see in this video. Let us study about the floating point numeric constants. Floating point numeric constants have the decimal point. These numbers have the decimal point. These numbers have the decimal point. Say for example, we can write 1.47. This is a floating point number because it has a decimal point. It can be negative as well, minus 2.18. It is a floating point constant. You can write 4.0. It is a floating point constant. Even though the numeric value of 4.0 is 4, we do not consider it as an integer constant. We consider it as a floating point constant. This same 4.0, we can just write it as 4 point. No need to write 0 over here. If the decimal part, if the fractional part is 0, you can skip writing 0 over here. You can either write 4.0 or you can write 4 point. Both means one and the same. Now, there are no different types of decimal, octal and hexadecimal in case of floating point numbers. There is only one. Now, these floating point numbers can be represented in scientific notation. These floating point numbers can be represented in scientific notation. Now, how do we write this floating point numbers in scientific notation? First, we write mantissa. Then we write E. You can write uppercase E or you can write lowercase e. Anyone you can follow it. Mantissa, this is E. And then we write the fractional part, that we call it as exponent part as well. Let's try to understand how do we write the scientific notation in programming, in C programming, with the help of an example. Say for example, we want to write 123.4567 in scientific notation. First, let's try to convert this in mathematical scientific notation. How would we write? We would write it as 1.234567 into 10 to the power 2. This is how we write in mathematics. Right? This is how we write in mathematics. Right? Now, how do we write the same thing in programming? Right, we write it as 1.234567. We don't write it as 10 to the power 2. Instead, we write it as E2. Now, this E means 10 to the power. This E means 10 to the power 2. Now, this becomes a mantissa part, and this is an exponent part, that is 10 to the power 2. This is the way we write in any given programming language, in C programming language. Similarly, sir, can we have the negative numbers or negative powers? Yes, you can have it. Let's take an example. Let us write 0.00034. First, let's write this in the form of mathematics. How do we write this in the form of mathematics? 3.4 minus 1 minus 2 minus 3 minus 4 into 10 to the power minus 4. This is the way we write it in maths. How do we convert this in programming? We say 3.4. You can write uppercase E or you can write lowercase e, and you say minus 4. This is the way you write the floating point numbers in the scientific notation form. Similarly, we can say minus 25.3. How do we write it in programming language? We can write it as minus 2.53 E1, and this becomes the floating point representation, scientific representation for this number. Now, what we have studied, the numeric constants. If we write 4, it becomes a integer constants. But if we write the same 4 as 4.0, mathematically no difference, but programmatically yes, there is a difference, and this becomes a floating point number. So this is where we complete the numeric constants, and then we will study now the character constants. Thank you. Let us discuss the character constants. Now, these character constants are alphanumeric constants. What do I mean by alphanumeric constants? That means you can use alphabets, or you can use numbers, as well as you can use these special symbols over here. Now, these character constants are again divided into two types. And there are two types of character constants. Let's write it. First one is single character constants. There are two types of character constants, and the first one is single character constant. Now, the name itself says single. That means it is single of length. Now, how do we define single character constants? Anything that is written in single quote. If you write anything in single quote and is of single in length, is a single character constant. Say for example, we write A, but if you write this A in single quote, this is A is single in length and it is written in single character, therefore it is a single character constant. You may write lowercase e. This E is single in length and is written in single quote, therefore it is a single character constant. We can write even number. Say for example, we can write 7. This 7 is written in single quote and is of single in length, therefore it is a single character constant. Similarly, we can write hash or dollar in single quote. This is written in single quote and is of single in length, therefore it is a single character constant. But if I write the same A like this, it is not a single character constant because it is not written in single quote, even though it is of single in length. Now, if I write AB in single quote, this is also not a single character constant, even though you have written in single quote, but this is not of single in length. Hence, in character constant, there are two types. The first one is single character constant. Let's discuss the second one. And the second one is a string. Constant. Now let us see what is a string constant. Anything that you write in double quote becomes a string constant. Anything that you write in double quotes becomes a string constant. Becomes a string constant. Say for example, if I write in double quote ABC, now this ABC becomes a string. There is no restriction on the number of characters or the length. You can write only one character A, this is a string. Please note that if you write A in single quote, it is a single character constant. But if you write A in double quote, it becomes a string. You can even write A1$4. This is a string. Anything written in double quote is a string. More about the strings we'll study in the strings chapter as well in string processing. So these are the different types of constants. Let's quickly summarize it and we will wind up this video. Thank you. Let us summarize whatever we have learned. Now constants, there are two types. The first one is numeric constant and the second one is character constant. And in numeric constants we have two types, integer constants and floating point constant. Anything that does not have decimal point is an integer constant, and that have the decimal point becomes the floating point constants. Now in integer there are three types: decimal, octal and hexadecimal. Decimal is from 0 to 9, that is base 10. Example, I can write 45 minus 27 and so on. Octal numbers begin with 0 and this is to base 8. Therefore you can use the numbers from 0 to 7. I'm sorry. Anything that begins with 0 is a octal number. I can write 045 minus 027. By definition 0 is octal in C. Hexadecimal number is base 16. You can use 0 to 9 and A to F. Hexadecimal number begins with 0x. They begin with 0x. Next are floating point numbers. They have the decimal point. And these floating point numbers can also be written in scientific notation. You can write 2.3 is a decimal, and the same 2.3 you can write it as 2.3 E0, right? Because it is into 10 to the power 0 is 2.3 itself. Next we have the character constant. In this we have single character constant. Anything that is of single in length and written in single quote is a single character constant. Anything written in double quote becomes a string. Here the length should be 1 in single character constant, but in string there is no restriction on the length. Now again to summarize, if I write 4, it becomes an integer. It becomes an integer. The same 4, we write it as 4.0, it becomes a floating point number. It becomes a floating point number. Now the same 4 we write in single quote, it becomes a single character constant. It is a single character constant. And the same 4 we write in double quote, it becomes a string. It becomes a string. I hope that you have understood this. Yes. So at the end of this video, at the description section, I am going to place few quiz relating to this. Please take this quiz. Yeah, thank you friends for watching this video. If you are new to this channel, please subscribe this channel, like it, share it, and please leave a comment on how do you find this video. Thank you once again for watching this. Have a great day.